Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This book, Babel by R.F. Kuang, is the book that's been the longest on my physical TBR. I think it's one of the first books that I bought last year and I never got the chance to read it. So in this video, I'm going to fix that. I will read Babel by R.F. Kuang and I will update you as I go on with my thoughts with some things that are happening in this book. And yeah, I'm excited to start reading. So without any further ado, let's start reading Babel. Hi, hello. It is the next morning. Yesterday night, I read the first 3 chapters of Babel, and now I continued with the 4th one. I finished the first book of Babel, which is chapters 1 through 4. It's like the first 90 pages or so in the copy that I have here. We are just introduced to this world of Babel and kind of what it means. The magic system seems to be very interesting, even though I don't have quite the grasp of it yet, of what it actually does. In this book, we are following Robin Swift, who is from Canton. His mom just died, and this Professor Lovell comes and asks him if he wants to go to the UK with him because he sees that Robin is very good with the English language. Back in London, we are following Robin as he is trying to learn Greek and Latin under the supervision of Professor Lovell so that Robin can get into Oxford to work in translation. This is a fantasy version of the 1830s London. We have this magic system that involves silver, like silver bars, and we get a demonstration towards the middle to end of chapter 4 on how the silver is actually used, but we don't quite get the full gist of things yet. It has to do something with translation from other languages to English. So yeah, I assume that's going to be something that we explore more. Also, while Robin arrives at Oxford, he sees something very strange. Is this guy that kind of looks like him but kind of doesn't. He seems very mysterious. He's also in cahoots with these other people that again seem very dangerous and mysterious, and chapter 4 leaves us with them meeting again, so I'm super curious to see how that turns out for Robin. Yeah, this is very, I wouldn't say it's hard to read per se, but it has a lot of details that you really have to pay attention to in order to get the full gist of the story. I am quite happy that I picked this up, and I am very excited to continue reading it. So let's continue with chapter 5, and I will update you probably after I finish book 2. Hi again. This is a couple of hours later. I have reached chapter 13. I have finished with the second book of Babel. So many things have happened since I last updated the video. We get this beautiful talk about translation and how it is an act of betrayal because you cannot really ever fully 100% translate something from a language to the other while also keeping its meaning from the original language, which is something that we learned in the university. I have studied foreign languages, so even though I have never pursued the act of translation professionally, we had a lot of courses and talks about translation and how it's supposed to be done. And this touches on so many aspects of translation process, and you can tell how much research has gone into this. There were certain topics brought up that I honestly forgotten, and now that I was going through them again, I kind of remembered the things that we talked about in school, and it was just beautiful to read that. Another topic that is explored in this book is colonization and just how rich and how much power the English have. I don't know if I mentioned this previously, but Robin's mom died from the plague, I think, or from other widely spread disease that was affecting Canton at that time. And there's this discussion on why she died, and when he's asked that, he's saying like, oh, because of this disease, you know, and the other person says like, no, that's not why. It's because either you or her couldn't afford to treat her effectively, and it's because of the whole like economical landscape, and like there are so many other powers at play. It's not just the individual thing, it's about the collective aspect of the nation. And it's so interesting how R.F. Kuang was able to weave all of these very hard to digest topics into a text that makes sense. And even though sometimes it's dense, you can't stop from actual reading because you just want to know what happens next. In this second book, we also get a more in-depth explanation of the magic system and how it actually works. They have these silver bars, and you can write on the silver bars words that mean the same thing in different languages, and in this way you can make them do whatever you want them to do. But it doesn't seem that it's this very specific thing. They can take another turn based on what words there are used. Also, another thing that I found very interesting with this magic system is the fact that the person that's actually writing down the words and uses the bar has to have an actual understanding of the words and to understand the language in order to be able to use it as it's supposed to be used and to have the desired effects. It is also said that they should never use the word translation on one of the bars because it's a word that has so many different meanings in other languages that it just completely destroys the silver bar. And not only that, the silver cannot be repurposed to be like melted away into another bar. It's just affecting something chemically, I guess, in the structure of the silver. It's a very interesting concept for a magic system. I've never read anything quite like this before. I'm kind of waiting to see how it's going to be used because right now we get all of these very short glimpses on how it is used. All of these students that are studying at this Babel Institute in Oxford, they're just like translation machines. The actual people at Babel don't care about them. They're just a means to an end. It's very sad to see because someone disappears or dies, I'm not entirely sure, and the faculty members that just like don't do anything. They just wear black and that's kind of it. They're not acknowledging the fact that one of their own students disappeared. So yeah, it's full of very complex themes, and it's definitely very mind consuming and tiring at times, but I am so happy to finally read this book because as someone that has this background of like studying foreign languages and specifically studying Chinese, this touches on some very interesting points about just language in general and also translation. It is said somewhere in the middle of the book too, I think, that the more used the European languages are in the making of these silver bars, they can become extinct because the meaning of the languages themselves are becoming so well known that it just diminishes the power of the silver bars. And that's why these very exotic languages are so important right now in the action of this book. My god, it's so hot today. It is ragweed season here in Romania, and I happen to be terribly allergic to that. I don't know if you can hear it, but my voice doesn't sound quite right today. We also get a more detailed look into the relationship between Professor Lovell and Robin. It is very clear that Professor Lovell doesn't really care about Robin. They have this discussion on why Professor Lovell let Robin's mom die, and he gets very defensive very quickly and he's just like ignoring Robin. Also, I don't know if I mentioned when I talked about the first book of Babel, but there's a specific scene where Robin as a kid indulges in reading a fantasy book, I assume, and he's late for one of his classes and Professor Lovell is just like hits him, and in that moment it's very clear to Robin that he's just like a pawn into all this like very elaborate scheme that Professor Lovell has, because he doesn't actually care about Robin and about his well-being. When I last updated you on the first book, I said that this new character is introduced. He's referred to as Robin's doppelganger, and in book 2 we find out that his name is Griffin, and Griffin was Professor Lovell's previous protege, I guess. I don't even know how to call them. Griffin can't actually speak Chinese. He doesn't remember it well because Professor Lovell took him away from China from like a very early age. And also something very interesting, we find out that Griffin is part of this secret society. I forget the name of it, but it's basically this whole like underground secret society, and they make Robin steal from Babel so that they have a bit more knowledge and information. Robin does this because he sees Griffin as his brother. That's how he's referring to him at certain points in the story. I have this feeling that Griffin is going to do something questionable, but yeah, I guess we'll see on that. I am currently 200 something pages in, 223 pages in. I want to read more of this today, and I will update you on my thoughts when I'm gonna finish book number 3. I am done with book 3, and how do I even put into words what happened so far? I didn't expect at all the action to go in this direction, but the more I'm thinking about it, the more it makes sense for the plot that we had so far. I don't want to spoil you, so I'm purposely very vague in telling you what happened, specifically at the end of book 3. We continue to explore more themes of anti-colonialism and anti-imperialism. Something happens and Robin and his friends, I don't know if I talked about them so far, but when he gets accepted into Oxford, he has these 3 other friends that he's kind of in the same year with. They all go to Canton with Professor Lovell, and something major happens there. It's kind of like a murder mystery, but not quite. We are trying to understand some bigger picture things that led to this event at the end of book 3. I honestly just want to keep on reading to see where this is going. I think I am like almost 60-ish%. I'm on page 327. It's chapter 19, and this has 542 pages, so 50 something or 60-ish%. Hey, what's 327 divided by 542?
327 divided by 542 is approximately 0.6033.
Okay, so it's exactly 60%. Yeah, I think I will take a pause to just like eat something, because I feel like I just stayed with my eyes glued on the page. And then I'm gonna continue reading. I don't know if I will be able to be done with this book today, but either way, I'm happy that I made quite a progress with this one. So, okay, see you soon. Hello again. It is still the same day. It is like 4 in the afternoon right now. And I finished book number 4. Some things are set in motion at the end of book 3, and they kind of have to deal with the aftermath of that in book number 4. What's really shocking is the amount of deaths that are happening in book number 4, and it's not just like some random character that we meet once. It's actually some characters that matter and that we saw in the book from like the very beginning. So it's quite shocking how fast everything happens. I am so intrigued and I'm so curious how this will end. I'm sure that the ending will be just as cutthroat. Someone just betrayed the cast of characters that we were following, so now we get her POV. I'm quite interested to see how that goes. I will go read the last book, book number 5 now. I still have like 100 pages left off of Babel. I'm very intrigued on how the story is going to conclude. I am sure that more devastating things are going to happen in this last part. I will see you when I finish this. Hopefully it's gonna be today. Okay, see you soon. It is 7 in the evening. I have finished Babel by R.F. Kuang, and even though I expected the ending to hurt, I just didn't think it would hurt as much as it did. The way that it ended, it was just heartbreaking. I kind of had a feeling that this is where we would end. Seeing it on paper is just so emotional, and I feel like I will need like 3 to 5 business days just like to recover emotionally. This book, I think, is honestly one of my favorite books that I read this year, and it might be recency bias because I just finished this one, but I feel like I will think about this book for many weeks and months to come. I just love this so much. There's a lot of etymology explained in this book and what certain words mean or where did they come from. A lot of Chinese idioms, which again, as someone who has studied Chinese but doesn't remember almost anything, I found that quite endearing. And I just remember of the time when I was studying at the university. It's something that I related very much with in this book. Granted, the prose is dense. If you don't enjoy prose, I don't know if you would like this book. It definitely feels a bit slow at times because of the over-explanation of things. And, you know, for me that's a plus, but for you it might not necessarily be. Also, a lot of the times when colonialism is explained or like racism or something that's, you know, not great, it would be explained very in detail, like this character is being racist towards this other character and that's not good. I wish that wasn't as prevalent or as repetitive, because as someone who's reading that, when I'm seeing the interaction between the characters, I'm like, yeah, this other character is not great because it's being racist towards this other character. Like, I know that, I can process that. Sometimes it can be a bit redundant with the over-explaining of things, but overall, I really liked the prose, the writing style, how the whole overarching plot came to be and was explored. It definitely takes like a 180. I think it's at the end of the third book, if I'm not mistaken, and then we kind of see where the cast of characters is split and they just have their own role in the story and how it ends. This is technically categorized as fantasy, but it just feels as like a melange of some other things as well. This also reads as a historical fiction. This also reads as a non-fiction at times. I just think it's very interesting how R.F. Kuang was able to mix all of these genres into this one book, and it doesn't feel jarring, or at least it didn't feel to me personally. The characters are very complex. We get attached to them really easily when we start the story and we feel for them. And because the characters are so raw and emotional and vulnerable, and we can see who they really are, the ending of this book hits so much harder. I will say though, the dialogue between the characters sometimes feels a bit too modern, because this is supposed to take place in the 1830s in London. It feels at times, modernized, but in the same time, it's just like easier to read that way. So I wouldn't consider it like a major factor with this book. I just thought it was interesting how the characters were having their dialogue and how just like modern it felt when they were talking to each other. The fictional time, it was again used very well. This is not one of those books that something happens during like a week or a month. This takes place throughout multiple years, and I think this definitely works in the favor of this book and of the story, because even though we don't get to see all the things that they do in those years, we definitely know that the characters are learning, are growing, and this adds to the overall story. I am quite surprised by this book. I knew it was like a heavier read. I just did not think it would be as impactful as it was for me. I'm kind of mad at myself that I postponed this for such a long time, but in the same time, I'm so happy that I finally got to read this, because it's just so amazing what R.F. Kuang achieved in this book, and I enjoyed it a lot. And as I said, I think I will think about these characters for a while after finishing this. But yeah, that being said, these are my thoughts on Babel by R.F. Kuang. Please let me know if you read this book. I know a lot of people have read this already because it was really popular a couple of years ago. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I guess I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone!